Hello, my name is Brian Doherty. This video is about the role of Francis Fitzgerald, the Justice Secretary, in the illegal attack on my family since my wife and I reported a paedophile. In June of this year, I made a complaint to the Garda Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman agreed that there were grounds of my complaints against corrupt Garda officers, including senior officers. Then immediately changed their approach and demanded to meet with me within 48 hours under what they called Section 98 of the 2005 Ombudsman Act. I looked this up, and guess what? This section gives Ombudsman officers the power to arrest a person without warrant. Because of the corruption involved, 9 times I emailed Ombudsman officers, and they refused to confirm that it was not their intention to arrest me for reporting corruption. It seemed very much as though some senior political figure had encouraged them to change direction. Who could that be? Which political figure is in charge of the Garda and the Ombudsman? Stepped forward the Justice Secretary, Francis Fitzgerald. Although the attack against my family has primarily been from TUSLA, Irish Social Services, the Justice Department has played an important role in the attack against my family. Fitzgerald's role has been essential, and I'll tell you why. Not only is she Justice Minister, but she's a former social worker. She's married to a psychiatrist. Remember, they keep calling us delusional for reporting a paedophile in their attempt to discredit us. And she was even the former minister of the Department of Children and Families for 4 years. Her role has been pivotal. Fitzgerald in many ways could not be more perfect. Having been accused of being delusional by social services and police for reporting a paedophile to the police and Garda, my wife and I had to undertake a psychiatric assessment to prove her sanity. How ridiculous is that? Getting a psychiatric appointment proved very difficult in the Republic of Ireland, with countless psychiatrists cancelling our appointments or even failing to return our calls. This was extremely suspicious, considering the amount of money a psychiatrist charges for a mere hour of their time. Now, despite the judge's ruling that Mary Millie, the corrupt social worker, was not to interfere, as she was caught priming medical staff, Millie was persistent in contacting us and trying to find out who our psychiatrist would be. She kindly directed us to contact the Association of Irish Psychiatry when we would not disclose who our psychiatrist was, as per the judge's ruling, for a list of private consultants. And would you believe it, it was even the chief executive of Irish Psychiatry, Miriam Silk, who replied to my email, and it was a general inquiry. It was all very suspicious. She said there was no such list of private psychiatrists. I mean, come on, who are you kidding? And despite her lack of knowledge about who was private and who was not from the chief executive, she, out of the kindness of her heart, gave us a personal recommendation. She suggested the private hospital that Minister Fitzgerald knows well because her husband used to work there. It all stank of corruption. A friend recommended a well-respected psychiatrist who arranged to meet us at Saturday lunchtime, rather strangely when his office hours and his business was closed. The first thing he did when we arrived was take my wife aside and start talking to her about something she had mentioned in a complaint to the Irish Medical Council. This complaint had been sent only 2 weeks earlier. Initially he seemed very hostile towards us, and it turned out he'd been grossly misinformed about me before our meeting. He was also strangely aware of which political representatives I had contacted. How could he have possibly known this? How could he have possibly known that? It's just not possible. After he listened to my story, he changed completely and became very supportive. At the end of this meeting, he said he would write a report and testify on our behalf in court, and for us not to worry that he would sort this out. This psychiatrist then failed to write a report, appear in court, or even answer my calls. On top of this, strangely did not charge us for this consultation, which lasted 3 hours. I've since discovered that this psychiatrist was a close colleague of Francis Fitzgerald's husband, who is also a psychiatrist and works in the same practice. So my question is this: seeing as I booked the appointment with this psychiatrist, how could he possibly have known which politicians I contacted, what my wife had written in a complaint about a GP, and who it was that had been told completely false information about me before we met? It was fortunate for us that no one considered us leaving the Republic to get a psychiatric appointment in Northern Ireland. When we handed over our report clearly stating that we were perfectly sane, The shock from everyone, except the judge, was tangible. On the pre-election programme hyped Ireland and a terrorist threat, Fitzgerald stated the Gardaí had a number of families under surveillance. She failed to mention, however, that amongst the people the Garda are monitoring is a family of 6 people who pose no terrorist threat whatsoever. Only the threat that concerns her government, the possibility of our revealing powerful paedophiles, and importantly, her government's cover-up of paedophilia and the attack on our family in doing so. She stated that she was not going to use the army, only the police force or the Garda, to deal with the threat of terrorism. The police tend to be organisations from whom sitting in a warm station and deciding who's going out for donuts are their everyday occupations, and as Fitzgerald is Ireland's Justice Secretary, Ireland's terrorist threat is managed by a social worker. That's right up there with the Scottish Government, whose terrorist threat is managed by a physiotherapist, Michael Matheson. It's probably just as well that the only terrorist threat in Ireland is from someone who owns a kebab shop in Dublin and whose cousin once went out with a guy who went to school with someone who said he didn't like George Bush. The only terrorists in Ireland seem to be at the top of government. On Tuesday the 15th of December, I wrote to Francis Fitzgerald, Enda Kenny and Nicola Sturgeon requesting they cease and stop all illegal surveillance of my family. The following day they used the same corrupt social worker Mary Lee from Castlebar to drive 4 hours to Letterkenny to obtain shameful warrants to have her children put into foster care. The day after that, Thursday the 17th of December, 8 Garda, many of them armed, and 5 social workers removed our children, literally kicking and screaming and crying for their parents, in a smash and grab raid on our home. The considerably corrupt actions by Fitzgerald in our department and the department of our close colleague James Riley breached their own constitution, Irish laws and basic fundamental European civil rights. This makes them terrorists, not jihadists, but by definition people who illegally harass and attack the innocent to further their political goals, and people who use violence and the threat of violence to cause terror and inflict pain and suffering on a family are by definition terrorists. Thank you for watching. Please pass this video on, and the full letter that I sent to Francis Fitzgerald will be uploaded on YouTube. Thank you.